Big Ten Plus 4 is a member of Odd Pods Media and ASAP All Sports All Plays Network. Hello, and welcome to Big Ten Plus 4. We bring you college sports with a Midwest perspective. We are blue collar and blue blood. I am your host, Sam Sprunger, and as you can see, it is just me. I had the comment to Dalton on Friday that somebody mentioned that I'm kind of in Star Wars because I'm solo and you can just call me Han. So, dad joke, Dalton beat you. It's within a minute of starting the first dad joke. So a lot happening in the Big Ten on both the men's and the women's side of basketball. We got some bracketology pretty much planned from now, every week from now until we actually get a bracket for both sides of the men and the women. This week it'll be the women's. We're going to talk about Charlie Cream's bracketology on Friday, and Dalton will be with us on Friday as well. And next week we will talk the men's. We kind of alternate the weeks excuse me, until we're a little closer. We alternate the weeks, men's and women's. Next week it will be Mike DeCourcy's projections, latest projections, and we're gonna have Mike DeCourcy from Fox Sports and Big Ten Network on the show on Wednesday. So really excited to be able to have Mike come on and join us and talk about, kind of the way he goes about projecting and how he came about where he's got the Big Ten teams on the men's side in his field of 68. And so we've got a lot planned going forward, a lot going on that we need to cover from this last weekend. And it's still really mucky on the men's side. So it's really unbelievable because we're sitting at 15 games, 5 to 6 games left for each team, roughly thereabouts, with some COVID cases, and then also Michigan State having to postpone some of their games here in the past few days. And I'll talk about that at the end of the show. We're looking at 5 to 6 games left to play. And this is still a really interesting Big Ten season for the men. This last weekend, we had some games that were pretty hotly contested. Michigan or IU, the Hoosiers go into Ann Arbor. They go in at 18th at the time of the game. Pull out a 1-point win. Trace Jackson Davis had 28 points. Hunter Dickinson, somebody that has produced pretty much all year, pretty consistently, but kind of quietly. There hasn't been a lot about him. You have Zach Edey, you have Trace Jackson Davis. You have, there are all sorts of players that have done enough. Bryce Sensabaugh at Ohio State, have done enough to kind of stand out that you kind of forget Hunter Dickinson's even kind of in the league. He's an older player, and so Michigan hard fought, but a loss to IU, and on Saturday, Rutgers went into Illinois and fell short. They're kind of in a backslide. They just lost last night to Nebraska. And we talked about Nebraska could be that team that is on the backside, the bottom three. You have Minnesota, Nebraska, and you have Ohio State. Now it's Ohio State, then Nebraska. So Nebraska's ahead of Ohio State in the standings. And we'll look at the standings a little bit more in just a few minutes. But Rutgers is kind of backsliding, and Nebraska was able to beat them yesterday. Nebraska also beat Wisconsin on Saturday. That's why I brought it up. It was Nebraska's beaten 2 of those teams that are in that big old cluster. Nebraska's beat 2 of them in back-to-back games. they're going to be that team for going forward, probably, that is going to be one that might nip you. So you might really want to take them seriously and take care of business while you're going to Omaha or to Lincoln or having the Huskers in. They can grab you, jump up and bite you. So a couple of good wins for excuse me, for Nebraska. Penn State still sliding too. They lost this weekend to Maryland. Now, don't get me wrong, Maryland's not a bad loss, but when you're struggling at the time, like Penn State has, it's tough for you to take a loss. And that was, it was 74-68, so it was relatively close. Hakeem Hart led the Terps with 23. Jalen Pickett, he's got Penn State's got a lot. They've got a lot of a little of a lot. So like they have players that can do almost every facet of the game really, really well, but not as a high of a performance or extended length to where they can maintain, and they're hitting cold spurts to teams that they shouldn't maybe struggle with. They struggle with in their shooting or holding on to the ball. It's a mixed bag with Penn State. One game, the one thing, their shooting can be the reason. Their 3-point shooting can be the reason why they win the game by 17. But it can also, the very next game against a lesser opponent, they can lose because they shot poorly from threes. Now, obviously, Sam, that's the game of basketball. You're correct, but like it seems like it's back and forth with Penn State, and I still think that they're a good team. I don't know that they're going to make the tournament. Maybe they're kind of on the fringe. I know Wisconsin and Penn State are kind of on that cusp of being the most on the bubble for Big Ten teams, but it's something that we're finally getting to where the season's kind of starting to shake itself out to where some of the teams that we thought, okay, they're definitely in, or maybe they're not going to get in. They're coming strong now. Nebraska, I don't think is going to make the NCAA tournament, but if they keep going, they might have a postseason bid, be it the NIT or the CBI tournament at the end of the seasons as well. They might be playing for that type of tournament or postseason life. So they still want to go and play. I mean, I would think they would still want to play some basketball. So they're going to play for their pride for especially the rest of the season, but then also maybe get that tournament bid that maybe wasn't expected. Maybe they thought, this is going to be a complete rebuild year, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden they've overachieved to the point where they're right around 500 and they're a couple of games below, I believe. And they could get a postseason bid. Don't overlook a team that's trying to get to the postseason, period, just because they're not going to make the NCAA. They're not going to give in just simply because they have no hope of going to the NCAA tournament. And here's the thing, I'm not saying it'll happen, but stranger things have happened. What's saying Nebraska couldn't get hot and start beating teams? And hey, Purdue loses to Northwestern, or not to Northwestern in the semifinals, and Nebraska sweeps in under and beats IU in the semifinals, and you've got a Nebraska Northwestern championship game in the Big Ten tournament, and Nebraska stuns them. Not saying it's going to happen. Don't even think it's plausible. But strange things have happened. So, but they're playing for a tournament bid. That means they want to be able to get to the postseason and play, period, whether it be a lesser tournament or not. So, to move on, let's go to Sunday. The big game there was in Evanston, and the the Northwestern Wildcats take down the number 1 team in the country, the top team in the Big Ten. They take down my Purdue Boilermakers Uh, it was a good game. Purdue did have a pretty comfortable lead, I believe 11 or 12 at one point in the second half. Northwestern's good at home. They're good overall. I mean, we'll look at the standings. They're good overall. Don't get me wrong. And there's a big game tonight happening, but it just wasn't expected to have Purdue be up that much and then give up the league completely and utterly like they did. Is this of concern? You don't want to see it happen, sure, but I don't doubt, and I said it last Wednesday that there was no doubt in my mind that Purdue, as the number one team in the conference, is going to lose again, and would go even further to say that they might and probably will lose a fourth. Well, we're still there. So they didn't play the worst game of their lives, but they also didn't play the best. So this is one of those that they're not as good as they looked at times, and they're not as bad as they looked at times. That's still pretty darn good. They're still the best team in the conference. They hold still a 2.5 game lead over IU and Northwestern in the conference. So you don't want to watch your team lose. You don't want to see a team like that lose in the way that they did, but there's still it was on the road to a good team. It's not alarms, so to speak. I'm not going to completely lose my ever loving mind because they lost to Northwestern. This is not 1995 when losing to Northwestern was embarrassing. Northwestern's pretty good this year. I'm not embarrassed to lose or to have my team have to say they lost to Northwestern. Northwestern's going to make the tournament. Northwestern may win at least a game in the tournament, depending on their seeding and who they're against and all that rigmarole. But the push comes to shove, this is not a bad loss. You don't want to lose. We've said that. Tony said it over and over and over again. I've said it, you don't want to lose, but if you're going to lose and you're going to have to, this is not one that you're going to be ashamed to have on your resume. So, as a Purdue fan, I'm mad because they had the game, they had the lead, they should have won. As somebody trying to look at it as an analyst, there's still a concern that Purdue can't handle the press very well. That's a legit concern because they did against Iowa the same thing where they were up a double digits, and Iowa was able to chisel it down to I think 5 or 6 points because of their press, because of just that disruptive defense on getting the ball down the court. Purdue is rock solid once they get down court and get a set play going and get their motion offense going. They're good. They're rock solid. That's the main reason why they're top 3 now. They're number 3 in the country, because once they get into their offense, they know what they're doing. It's not allowing them to get to that or disrupting how quickly they can get to it. That's Iowa had success with it. Didn't win, lost by double digits, but they had a little bit of success to where maybe they can attack that later or can give the blueprint to other teams to play them. And then, excuse me, Northwestern absolutely did it, and they took advantage of it and were able to get the win. First time they ever have beaten a number 1 team in the country. Happened Saturday on Super Bowl Sunday in Evanston in front of the home crowd. Always a nice thing to do in front of your home crowd. Boo Booey, 26 points. Really, really, really good game. He had Zach Edey reeling a few times. Now Zach Edey had 24, played a good game, was dominant at times, much like he has been most of the season. So one of those that you're not extremely too upset, I guess, to say that they lost. You're upset, but it's not disheartening, I guess. They haven't been dismantled. And I heard somebody say today, actually on the radio, they felt that Alabama was the number one team and overall the best team. And that's okay. That's okay to feel, but they said that they've been the most dominant team by far all year. I wouldn't disagree that they've been dominant all year. I don't think they've been the most dominant. The most dominant teams don't get beat by 20 plus to a team that is 3-6 at the time in their conference. Alabama lost to Oklahoma by 25 points. Granted, it was on the road. Granted, they don't play Oklahoma all the time. Granted, Oklahoma is in the Big 12. 3-6 might be a little bit better than what you're looking at a different conference. Not the point. People would have argued last year when I was trying to say that maybe Purdue was one of the best teams and should be one of the favorites. Well, how do you go to Ann Arbor and lose by 20 plus points? Fair point. Purdue absolutely got housed against Michigan last year in Ann Arbor. That's also a team that they have historically struggled going to the Chrysler Arena, and not as an excuse, but they're familiar with it. That's where I see a domination being a little less indicative of the team and its propensity to fall behind. They were down by 30 plus points to a team they had not played and probably didn't have much of a scouting report on. That's the NCAA tournament. So I don't know that I feel that Alabama is the most dominant team of the men's college basketball season. They may be. I don't see it being that they have lost a game by that much. Losing is okay in the aspect of you can learn things from what you did in those losses. But when you've got a throwaway game, because you don't want to watch a 25-point loss because you're not going to get much out of it. It's those, so you don't want a throwaway game loss. So I don't know. It's just my thought. If you have a rebut to it, feel free to put in the comments, or find me on the social media. Right there's my Twitter handle at SamSpringer1 on Twitter. Tell me I'm an idiot if that's your thing, I guess. So let's move to the second quarter and let's look at the standings in the men's conference. All right, we are moving to where we're going to look at the men's standings in the Big Ten. We're looking at pretty much, like I said, about 5 to 6 games, depending on who it is. But Purdue is sitting there still with a 2.5 game lead, with for them 5 to play. Dalton talked about it on Friday that this is something that he's never seen in his time while at Michigan State and covering the Big Ten. And he said that he thinks this is a done deal. Well, I also have stressed, as a fan, I'm never going to say that it's a done deal because I've seen things happen as a fan of organizations that when it can go wrong, it certainly does. I'm a Cubs fan, so that is definitely something. They are in the front seat. They're the driver's seat. They're driving this bus right now, and they should be the Big Ten regular season champs. The next two are the most interesting because it's Northwestern and IU, and they play tonight. They play tonight at 9:00 on the Big Ten Network, I believe. Anyways, let me say that. Yep, on Big Ten Network, 9:00 tonight. They are in Evanston. That place is going to explode during that game. Now, if they can beat IU tonight, IU is the 14th ranked team in the country at this point. If they can win that and put a number one ranked Purdue, number 14 ranked IU, back-to-back games, that resume is huge for them. If IU can go to Evanston and beat Northwestern, that is a huge feather in their cap. They have a win against Purdue. They have a win against against Northwestern. This is a separation game for IU. If they can win tonight against Northwestern at Northwestern, okay, that puts them a game ahead of Northwestern. And it would put them a full game in front of Illinois. I don't think Illinois plays tonight as well. I'd have to look. I just backed out of that. But this separates them. That gives them that little cushion. They're still going to be 2 games behind Purdue at this point, with still a game to play against the Boilermakers. And Purdue doesn't have a gimme tomorrow against Maryland in College Park. This game is big for both of these teams. I think that's what's going to make it very exciting to watch. Trace Jackson Davis and Boo Buie going at it against each other. I think both could probably put up 25 plus, 30, close to both. And if that happens, it's obviously going to be who's scoring on the sides, on the in the periphery. I don't know. Northwestern is a different animal at home. They've already beaten IU at Assembly Hall. They've already got, at least I think it was Northwestern. Yeah. 84-83 at Assembly Hall. So this is a revenge game of sorts, even for IU. Makes it a little bit more a bigger game because Northwestern came in and beat us at home. That's a different IU team that Northwestern beat. But it's also kind of a different Northwestern team. They're a better Northwestern team coming into this game. So this is a big game for both of those teams. You got Illinois following up behind, behind those two teams. Illinois off until Saturday, then where they play IU in Bloomington. So this is a big game tonight for IU, but then Saturday they come back and play another big game, and it's at home at least, but against the next team. So if let's say Northwestern wins tonight, that means IU goes into a game against Illinois having to win, or they'll fall from 3rd to 4th and maybe even 5th, depending on the way teams below play. This season is crazy. My good Lord. Look at this. We're still sitting at number 2 and number 9 being separated by 2 games. You make it 3 games and you pull in number 10. 3 games is a push. But literally 2 games, one way or another. And any of these teams. Michigan last week when we talked, just on Friday, they were tied for 2nd. Think about that. We talked Friday. Dalton, me, we talked about this on Friday. Michigan sat in 2nd place, a 3-way tie for 2nd. Look at them now. They're sitting in 9th. That's less than a week. I would not be shocked, even after Rutgers losing last night to Nebraska, if next Wednesday, when we're talking to Mike DeCourcy, we're talking about Rutgers being 3rd or 4th. Can happen. It's an insane basketball season for the men. The other side of the basketball, the women's, it's as crazy, just maybe a little bit more top heavy crazy. But still, looking at this, what is up with Ohio State? I don't understand how the Buckeyes are 3-11 in Big Ten play. I don't understand it. They have one of the best players in the conference, Bryce Sensabaugh. And Chris Holtmann, hot seat. He's 3-11 in Big Ten. We talked about it last week. We're not saying they were supposed to be the most successful team in the Big Ten. They weren't supposed to be the most dominant team in the Big Ten. They weren't even supposed to be a top contender in the Big Ten. But they sure weren't supposed to be 3-11 in the Big Ten. So it's perplexing as to what is going on with Ohio State. Purdue beat them by 1 point in Columbus in early January. It was a good win. It was a good win at the time. Now it's just like, well, they should have won. So it's really confusing with them. They've lost 6 in a row. That's upwards of 3 weeks, ladies and gentlemen. 3 weeks since they last won a game. The month of February has not been a good one for them, and part of January. So the only team with a longer losing streak is Minnesota, and they've lost 8 in a row. That's it. Like, that's the only thing better that they're better than right now. They've lost less games in a row than the team in last place. So that's a struggle. It's a struggle to accept, honestly, because it just doesn't make sense. With as good as the Ohio State program has been in recent history, it's confusing to see Ohio State be this. And we all know it's cyclical. Back before, Matt Painter took over at Purdue, in Gene Katie's last couple of years, Purdue really struggled. And in Matt Painter's first year, they were 7-21, I think, 21 or 22. That's the most losses in Purdue basketball history in a season. So I get it. It goes bad, but we weren't ready for it, I think. I think that's my biggest thing is we weren't ready for Ohio State to go from very competitive, very good to 3-11 in one season. They didn't have Bryce Sensabaugh last year, but they had Malachi Branham. He's really good. He was really, really good. They made the tournament. Convincing, there was no question they were going to be in the tournament when they got seeded. There was no question. It was just where and when. You replace Branham with Sensabaugh, you would think they'd be at least comparable, but they're not. And I don't think it's Bryce Sensabaugh's issue. So looking at Michigan State, the bottom part of that conglomerate through the 6, 7, 8, and 9 team, we've got Iowa at 8-6. I'm sorry. Let's go into the 8 and 6s. Illinois at number 4 is 8-6. Maryland at number 5, 8-6. Iowa 8-6, number 6, and Michigan State at 8-6, number 7. Then you look at the next two, which are Rutgers and Michigan. They're both 8-7. So that conglomerate, 4 through 9, separated by one game. Never underestimate a Tom Izzo coach team. Never do it. Never underestimate a Tom Izzo coached basketball team. That's all I'm going to say. They will get back into action this weekend. They have Michigan. They have Michigan. They're in Ann Arbor on Saturday. It'll be their first game back after their postponement of their game that they were supposed to play, I believe, tonight against Minnesota. So we're looking at Michigan State could be a factor. I don't know that they're going to be a front runner necessarily, but I think they're going to be a factor. They're going to play into that top 5, I think. And I think that's Tom Izzo. That's what he does. So, all right. Well, I think we've kind of exhausted the men's standings. So on the other side of the break, we're gonna talk about the women's standings, and then I've got a headline that I know we normally wait until Friday, but we've we've had a couple of weeks go for whatever reasons that we don't have or hadn't had the headlines. So I've got a special one that I want to do when it comes to headlines this week. So let's go to the break, and we'll talk about the women's standings on the other side. You are listening to Big 10 Plus 4, hosted on Anchor and StreamYard.
Hey, this is Grab 'Em Brisket Podcast. Join us every Monday where we talk about the latest trends in barbecue, interviews with world top pitmasters, celebrity cooks,
ooh, like Wee Man from Jackass,
and musicians.
Like Rich O'Toole?
So check us out. We do beer reviews, barbecue fails.
So many fires.
Dude, a lot of people just burn their houses down for no reason.
We also talk about cocaine hippos versus meth gators,
Learn how to make some tailgate gravy.
altercations with Texas Rangers.
People throwing Reese's peanut butter cups.
Yeah, so check out grabthebrisket.com for podcast info, viral social media posts, and so much more.
Hey man, it's me, Kevin Smith. Everybody knows at the root of any good relationship, any relationship worth anything, is the only thing that matters between two people. And I'm talking about television. That's right. That's why you should listen to Married with Television, man, which is a podcast by my friends Shannon and Jamie, I call her cat ears, about movies and TV that they have loved for decades, man. You listen at marriedwithtv.com or anywhere you get your podcasts. They are proud members of the Odd Pods Media Network, man. Married with Television.
So, Tony, I just bought some flyers to do, like a grassroots type of advertising for Big 10 Plus 4. And
you can't go wrong with that type of promotion either.
Yeah, correct. And I got a great deal on flyers at Sticker Mule.
Yeah, I remember you saying that all of our stickers, all of our Klingons, everything like that comes from Sticker Mule.
Yeah, now our flyers too.
I guess so. So Sticker Mule is supposed to be the easiest way you can buy custom stickers, decals, labels, and other printing items all online, right?
Yeah, order in 60 seconds and they'll turn your designs and illustrations into custom stickers, magnets, buttons, labels, and packaging in just days. They offer free online proofs, free worldwide shipping, and super fast turnaround. If you click on the link in the show notes, Herman is going to give you $10 off any purchase of at least $10.
And you can start designing and order in minutes with Sticker Mule.
Yeah, and thank you, Sticker Mule. All right, yeah, thank you, Sticker Mule. They have some really good products that we take advantage of here at Big 10 Plus 4. Plus, at my on my other podcasts as well, we do our stickers and then flyers and things of that nature, also from Sticker Mule. So, really good stuff there at Sticker Mule. So, moving to the third quarter, we're going to talk a little bit about the women's standings. Not much has changed really at the top too much. And when I say the top two, I know Maryland was also there at number 3, but they're kind of on the outside. I know they're close and only one game back of Iowa there. But you just at some point you think that maybe Maryland can compete and maybe would beat Iowa, but you kind of look at those top two at IU and Iowa as being those front runners that are going to kind of probably stay there. They do play one more time together or against each other in the season finale, regular season finale in Iowa City. The Hawkeyes trying to exact their revenge against the Hoosiers. Suffering a 9-point loss just last week to the Lady Hoosiers in Bloomington. So Caitlin Clark leading pace in the way with for the Hawkeyes. But this weekend, the whole Iowa team kind of got in on it and laid it to Rutgers 111-57. So they really kind of took it out on the Scarlet Knights, kind of getting their better game, I guess, feeling a little bit better about themselves after getting beat by IU earlier in the week. But Molly Davis paces the Hawkeyes with 17. Good win. Like I said, a good get healthy win or recovery game. They didn't let the fact that they lost cloud what they were going to do against Rutgers. They did their thing, and they dominated the Scarlet Knights on Saturday. Illinois, Michigan both got wins also on Saturday or on Sunday. I mean, to kind of pace the way into this week. And excuse me, that's not what I want to do. I hit the wrong button. So then tonight, Michigan State Purdue has been postponed, but you have Iowa taking on Wisconsin, Again, it's in Iowa City. It's at 7:30 tonight. Wisconsin down near the bottom. They're right there, number 12 in the conference right now, 3-11. They can shoot the ball though. They can shoot from long range, but it just happens that they don't seem to be hitting as often as they're not. So if they do get a hot hand, maybe they can compete with Iowa for a little bit, but I just don't see Iowa falling victim to the upset bug against Wisconsin, thus still pacing them with IU there at the top of the Big Ten, because tomorrow is a big game for IU. IU hosts number 12 ranked Michigan. So the number 2 Hoosiers host the number 12 ranked Lady Wolverines. 8:30 on Big Ten Network. They're at Assembly Hall in Bloomington. I anticipate a pretty big crowd. The Hoosier ladies have packed the house let's say it this way, at least in their big games, to the size of the men's crowds, and that's pretty impressive, and that's pretty good on IU students and fans showing up and supporting their team the way they have when it comes to the ladies over there in Bloomington. But they've got a big game tomorrow against Michigan. Michigan is solid. And if you look, they're sitting at 4th. They were, and I know it's only one spot, but they've jumped Ohio State. Ohio State has Penn State tomorrow night. They go to University Park and play the Nittany Lions there. Not an easy win there either. Now, granted, we're looking at Penn State at 4-10, 13-12. But whenever you've got to go to University Park, they're in Happy Valley, it's a tough place to play. And so, and with Ohio State struggling lately, they've got to be very, very careful and go in and try to get that win, stay on pace with the top 4 there. But Michigan, I mentioned, they play IU, and I believe they play Maryland, but they don't play anybody else in that top 5. Granted, they're part of the top 5, which means they play half, but they don't have to play IU again. They might have Ohio State. I don't know. I don't remember. I guess I could click on their schedule and talk about what they have left. But yeah, okay, right here's their schedule. They have IU tomorrow. Then they have Ohio State. Then they're home to Rutgers and on the road to Wisconsin. Tomorrow and next week against Ohio State are their 2 games. If they can win one of those 2 even and only leave the rest of their schedule with 5 losses, they could be 3rd in the conference. Because I think Maryland can be beat. I don't know that they're going to lose, Maryland, that is. But, I mean, shoot. Maryland is one of those that I have said, they watch out for them because they could jump up and bite you. They play Iowa still. They play Ohio State still. They've got Michigan State yet. So those games, if they win all 3 of those, they're number 2 in the conference. But are the chances that they win all 3 of those? I don't know. I don't think that it's great. So if they lose a couple, let's say they lose 2 of those 3, they lose to Ohio State, which Ohio State is going to try. They're playing as good as they can. They're definitely capable of beating anybody on a given night. So let's say they lose to Ohio State and they lose to Iowa. Michigan just keeps winning. Michigan ends up the 3 seed. So Michigan has got an advantageous spot where they can kind of take advantage of the teams at the top beating up on each other. If IU beats Iowa and then Maryland jumps up, Maryland jumps up and bites Iowa, that gives them 4 losses. If Michigan wins the rest of the way through, they're tied with Iowa. So it's very interesting to see how that's going to work with Michigan, and if they can take advantage of, excuse me, of those teams above them beating up on each other. If they can, they might be getting some different buys in the Big Ten tournament in Minneapolis if that's the case. And what a rough year for Minnesota. Their men's side is well, we just had it up here. They've only got one win. The women only have two. That's a rough time in Minneapolis right now for the Gophers. I don't feel bad for them because that means that they've never seen anything. It's just rough to see that Minnesota, usually a pretty solid program, at least competitive wise, both sides of the ball on the men's and the women's, struggling this year. It's tough to see sometimes. But the last time we talked about women's basketball, we were talking about the bracketology last week, and on that, I believe that was on Wednesday last week. Today, the Big Ten has, I believe, 8 teams, 7 teams in, and an 8th team on the bubble with Nebraska, I believe. You've still got Michigan State a little bit further out. They're only 13-12 overall. They're 5-9 in the conference. You're probably looking at an NIT bid for Michigan State if they don't go on a huge winning streak and then win a couple of games in the Big Ten tournament. You're probably looking at NIT for the Spartans. And I know Dalton probably doesn't want to hear that, but I'm guessing that's probably more of a feasible result for the Lady Spartans this year. So tough telling, but this is going to be an interesting last week and a half of the season, because you've got, IU and Iowa are going to be playing, Maryland and Iowa are going to be playing, Michigan playing Michigan and Iowa, not Maryland and Iowa. Michigan and Iowa playing, or maybe it was Maryland. I a lot of information going on right now, but it's going to be a fun end of the season, because I think IU finishes off. I think they probably go into Iowa and beat them, but that's still a ways away. But I see that being IU's only time of losing the rest of the way. I think they're just that good. They're playing very well. Grace Berger along with Mackenzie Holmes, actually Mackenzie Holmes along with Grace Berger, have just paced the Hoosiers ahead of everybody. And like Dalton said, if it weren't for one trip to East Lansing right now, we might be looking at the Lady Hoosiers being undefeated, 25-0 and 15-0 in the Big Ten, like that. And it took a late game win against the Hoosiers for the Spartans to take them down. So it was they're a one poor streak of basketball away from being an undefeated team. So I think they're going to be the cream of the crop when it comes to the Big Ten women's NCAA squad, I guess. But be interesting to see who else makes their way. So we'll talk more bracketology, or the latest bracketology for the women on Friday. We do that courtesy of Charlie Cream from ESPN. So let's move to the fourth quarter. I've got a little bit of a headline that I want to talk about, and then we'll send you on your way. So let's go to the fourth. Okay, so Dalton is out. He is going to be. He was planning. The plan was he was going to be out anyways. We don't talk about a lot of what Dalton does, but his job during the day does put him on the campus of Michigan State. So I've talked to Dalton, and he's safe. There was no danger posed to him when we're talking about the incident that took place on the campus of Michigan State a couple of days ago. Such tragic news. A very a very tough pill to swallow. And no matter the ability to say what you think is wrong, that's fine. I'm not talking about what we need to do in the aspect of gun control or mental health, anything like that. It's let's keep those people in East Lansing in our thoughts. If you're the praying type and the religious type, say a prayer for everybody that is part of the Michigan State community this evening, in the next few days, few weeks going forward, that you keep those affected, the families, the professors that might have worked closely with these students, the roommates, the friends, the family and close personal connections that those three individuals made while they were on campus at East Lansing. It should never be taken for granted life, and it probably won't ever happen to you. But when it does happen to you, always remember that you've got people there supporting you. They love you. I'm part of the Purdue community. Dalton, Tony, they're part of the Michigan State community, but all in all, we're part of the Big Ten community. So at this time, while I love my Purdue Boilermakers, Michigan State and the Spartans and everybody in East Lansing, everybody affected by these the goings on there in East Lansing, you're in my thoughts, you're in my prayers. We love you, and we will always make sure that we care for our own, and that means Big Ten and in humankind. So my strongest prayers and thoughts with the families, the friends, and everybody involved, or knew anybody involved in those things that went on in East Lansing. But also, you're part of our Big Ten community, and we love you, and we want to support you in any way. So that's my extra special Sam Sentinel today. I didn't even put the banner up. I did. It's just a really tough being a parent of some soon-to-be college-age boys. I would hate to think and hate to receive the news of something happening like this. Not even in them involved, just that it happened while they were there. And it really brings a perspective that you never really had thought about until you have some kids that could be involved in a or on a campus during a time of something like that happening. And it's frightening. And I'm not saying how we should take care of it. It's just that let's keep those people involved in our thoughts. So that's it from that one. Getting ready to move on. We're running just a little bit shorter today. That's okay. But ways to get a hold of us. You can go to Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Big 10 plus 4 at Big 10 plus 4. You got to spell out the plus. You cannot put the plus sign. You have to spell out the plus. Facebook, you can just put Big 10 plus. You can spell it out. You can put the plus sign. Doesn't matter. It'll guess. We are on oddpodsmedia.com. That's where our audio is through, is Odd Pods Media. We are the only sports show in the network for Odd Pods Media, but there are all sorts of other things: music, beer, food, great conversations, interview style, hangout style interviews, games. It's great to be part of Odd Pods Media. We are streamed twice a week on the ASAP All Sports All Plays Network. You can follow or watch the stream on Facebook. You can watch it on Twitter. We do have a YouTube channel there, or ASAP does have a YouTube channel. And we also have the ASAP streaming television channel that you can catch us the 2 days, Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern and Fridays at 9 a.m. Eastern. And if you miss the stream when they're live, you can always go to Spotify and check out our stream there. Thank you so much for coming in today. I told you that We've got bracketology coming up on Friday. Dalton will be in on Friday. He will be talking a little bit of the ladies bracketology with us, courtesy of Charlie Cream from ESPN. Then next Wednesday, really excited about this. We're going to talk about men's bracketology. And every time we talk men's bracketology, we use Mike DeCourcy from the Big Ten Network and Fox Sports. Mike's going to join us on the show on Wednesday. We're going to talk about his latest projections and what that means for the Big Ten, according to Mike DeCourcy in the NCAA tournament. So we got a lot coming up. We're really excited to have these conversations and just talk back and forth and talk about, in our opinion, and it should be everybody's opinion, but at least our opinion, the best conference in the country. So from us here at Big Ten Plus 4, Dalton Shetler, who will be in on Friday, Tony, who's out temporarily, he's not in right now, but Tony Hollinsworth as well. I'm Sam Sprunger. Thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you later.